So as I mentioned in the previous video, travel funding is available for the 2020-2021 school year. However, it will look a little bit different due to COVID. So for eligible travel, we look at things like how does this travel opportunity support the mission and or values of the organization? What role will students traveling represent the organization and APSU? What opportunities for educational leadership and or personal development are included in this trip? And what will the students traveling gain that will positively impact their organization and the greater APSU community? So at this time, student organizations are permitted to travel. There's no ban on it, but most events that our student organizations typically go to have been moved to an online format. Therefore, travel funding is available for online conferences, webinars, etc. For the 2020-2021 school year. However, they still must have an educational or leadership aspect to it. So the limitations haven't changed from the previous years. You're still allotted a limit of $1,500 maximum per organization trip. The funds must be used for student expenses only. No faculty or staff expenses are eligible. Organizations may apply for travel funding up to 3 times per fiscal year. And any event will only be eligible for funding a maximum of 3 times a year, no matter the number of student organizations requesting to attend that event. So even if there are 10 student organizations requesting to go to the same event, only 3 will be approved. But an event may be considered as a single event even if it occurs at multiple dates and or locations during a year. Funds cannot be used for personal interests, religious or political events, or competitions where there are no academic or development sessions. The qualifications for travel funding are still the same. You must be an eligible, recognized, active, and in good standing with the Office in Student Life of Engagement. Organizations must have completed the finance training provided by the SOC. New student organizations or those who have restarted after going inactive must be recognized for 2 months before eligible to apply. The individual students going on the trip that are included on the travel funding application must be a member in good standing with an APSU registered student organization, be currently enrolled at the time of the application and at the time of travel, have no formal discipline record with the university, and not be a regular faculty or staff member of the university. So the application process this year is slightly different from the other years. You still will apply on the SLE webpage or the SOC Peay page. However, there's going to be a section for you to choose whether or not this is going to be an online event or in-person event. And after this slide, there will be a video clip showing you how to apply, what the page looks like, etc. So you'll complete 1 application per trip, including all participating students on 1 application. For the application deadlines, applications should be submitted approximately 6 to 8 weeks in advance of departure, but may be submitted up to 6 months prior to the trip. An application submitted less than 4 weeks prior to the date of the departure will not be eligible for funding. So make sure you get those in on time. And only completed applications will be considered regardless of submission date. Okay, so I'm just going to walk through the forms for applying for travel funding. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go to Peay, which you can get through through your one-stop. And this is the home page. You're going to make sure you're signed into your account, and then you're going to scroll down to the bottom, and there's going to be campus links, and you're going to click on Apply for SOC Funding, and then you're going to click on this big red button that says Travel Funding Request, and then you probably won't see these here, but you're going to see a New Submission button, and that's what you're going to click. And then you're going to read over this blue information and click to confirm. And this is the point where you click whether you're going to an online, fully virtual event or an in-person event. So first I'm going to go through the steps of the online, fully virtual event. So you'll see all of this information that needs to be filled out. You're just going to go through and fill out the information completely and make sure that you include everything and make it as detailed as possible. Okay, so after you get through the first page, you are going to get to the second page, and the second page is where it is really important to be very detailed. You're going to answer questions like describing the event that you're attending, to let us know what the event is about. How does the travel opportunity support the mission and or values of your student organization, which is very important for us determining whether or not to approve the funding. And then in what role will the students traveling represent the organization? What opportunities are there for educational leadership and personal development? And what will the students traveling gain that will positively impact your student organization or APSU? And then any additional information that you feel like will help us throughout the travel funding process. So this next page is just all about the virtual event. Again, you're going to go through and say who's hosting it, what's the start date, what's the end date, the website URL, registration cost, the number of student organization members that are going, and then you need to list all of the student members participating in the event, and make sure to include their first, last, and APSU student A number. What is the total cost for your student organization? And then here you'll upload a file that just proves that you've registered for the event, and proves that all the members that you listed are registered for the event as well. Any unique details, that's optional. And then how will the registration expenses be initially paid? So are you going to use your off-campus bank account, on-campus bank account, or an individual, is an individual going to pay for it? So this last page is just clicking and saying that you understand the statements below. So you're going to go through and click that you understand, and then sign it with your name, and then today's date. Today's the 24th. Going to click next. And then on the next page is going to be where you actually submit it. So you have a chance to go back and make sure that you've submitted all your required documentation. Once you're good to go, you can press this next button. And here again, you can go through, click on these hyperlinks, go back to anything, make sure you didn't miss it. And once you think you're good, you press submit. And then you wait for the SOC to approve it, and you're going to go through the steps on the following slides on what your next steps will be after submitting your travel funding. Okay, so just as before, as I did just a minute ago, we're going to go to the Peay link page. We're going to click apply for SOC funding. We're going to click the travel funding request, and then new submission. You're going to read this blue box, make sure that you understand everything in there, click that you confirm. But this time I'm going to show you what the form looks like for an in-person event. So we're going to click in-person. The first page looks pretty similar. It's just filling out all the information about who you are, your student organization, where you're going, and then your advisor, faculty and staff, etc. So make sure to fill this page out completely. So this next page is very important. This is where you give us more details about the event. So you're going to include the name of the event, destination city, when you're leaving, when you're going to return. Again, all of the student participants' names and A numbers. And then the name of the faculty and staff traveling with you. You're going to have a transportation section where you choose your transportation method. So you can have airline, personal vehicle, rented vehicle, estimated expense, documentation of your transportation, and then any additional details you feel like we would need. You'll have a lodging section where you're going to include the hotel or facility name, the address, the number of nights you're staying, the estimated expense, all supporting documentation for lodging, and any additional details again. And then you have a section for registration and administration fees. So you're going to include the estimated expense for that, upload those documents, and then you have a space for additional details. And then you're going to include the total estimated travel expense. So that's going to include the registration, lodging, and transportation. And then again, how will the expenses be paid? Is it going to be paid by an individual, student organization, the on-campus account, or the off-campus account of the student organization? So make sure to fill this out completely. So this next page is again just reviewing these statements right here and making sure that you fully understand them. So once you've read them, you can click the check marks beside them, sign your name, and enter today's date. And then you can read this blue box, make sure that you understand it. You can click next. And then on this page, you're able to click these blue hyperlinks, make sure that you've completed everything fully, have all the information. And once you think you're good to go, you can press submit. And then you will wait for the SOC to get in contact with you about your next steps for travel funding. So after your funding has been submitted, a notice of decision will be provided within 2 weeks of the date submitted. Organizations receiving funding will meet with the SOC president to complete necessary travel financial documentation and review post-travel requirements. Appeals of the SOC allocation decision may be submitted in writing to the Coordinator of Leadership and Student Organizations, who is Kelly Carpenter, and she is the one who makes the final decision. So following travel, within 10 days, the organization post-travel form found on the SOC Peay link page must be submitted. The organization will be contacted to meet with the SOC president to complete travel claim for reimbursement. All receipts and travel documentation must be provided in the original format during the travel claim meeting. And please do not submit any paperwork directly to the business office. All reimbursement paperwork must go through SLE. Failure to complete the form within 10 days will result in a forfeit of the funding awarded. And organizations who fail to follow the guidelines for funding will not be reimbursed. So if you guys have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to the Coordinator for Leadership and Student Organization, which, as I mentioned before, is Kelly Carpenter. I have listed her email here. And you can also feel free to reach out to myself, the SOC president. I also listed my email down below. I understand that with COVID, you might be confused on how to go about applying for this funding. So feel free to reach out. We can schedule a Zoom meeting, email, anything like that.